burst of stress hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline, designed to pull stored sugar back into the bloodstream. Those hormones do their job, but they also nudge you out of deep, restorative sleep. Not violently, not with a jolt, just enough to disrupt things quietly, leaving you groggy come morning, even though the clock says you slept plenty. This is where peanut butter becomes genuinely interesting from a nutritional standpoint. It sits low on the glycemic index, meaning it doesn't cause a quick spike, followed by a crash. Instead, because it combines protein, healthy fat, and a touch of carbohydrate, it releases energy gradually over several hours. Nutrition researchers have long pointed out that low glycemic foods eaten before bed tend to produce steadier, less erratic blood sugar through the night, particularly in older adults whose regulation has already started to slip. Think of it like setting a slow-burning log on the fire before turning in for the night. Nothing dramatic happens. No flare-up, no surge, just a steady, even warmth that holds until morning. When blood sugar stays level like that, your stress hormones stay calm, your body stays in repair mode rather than emergency mode, and your sleep has a much better chance of staying deep. Now, let's connect this to something else most people overlook entirely, which is the difference between sleep duration and sleep quality. You can technically spend 8 hours in bed and still wake up feeling like you barely slept. The reason often comes down to what raw materials your brain has on hand overnight. Melatonin, your body's primary sleep signal, starts ramping up as daylight fades, but melatonin doesn't appear out of nowhere. Your body has to build it, starting with an amino acid called tryptophan, which gets converted into serotonin, the calming brain chemical, which then gets converted into melatonin itself. It's a chain reaction, and if any link in that chain is weak, sleep quality suffers along with it. Peanuts happen to contain tryptophan. Not an enormous amount, but a meaningful one. And here's the detail that makes peanut butter specifically useful in this equation. Fat content actually helps tryptophan cross into the brain more efficiently. In plainer terms, the fat acts almost like a delivery vehicle, helping that sleep-supporting building block reach the brain where it's actually needed. Some research into dietary fat and brain chemistry in older adults has suggested that evening fat intake is linked to better tryptophan availability, which in turn supports the body's natural melatonin production. So this isn't just eating a snack before bed. It's giving your brain something close to the raw ingredients it needs to manufacture its own sleep hormone. That's a meaningful detail, and it's worth pausing on for a second. How many nights have you lain there, wide awake, wondering why sleep just won't come the way it used to? It's worth considering that part of the answer might have been sitting quietly in your pantry the whole time. Let's shift to something a lot of people experience but rarely talk about out loud, which is waking up hungry in the middle of the night, or lying there with a quietly grumbling stomach that's just distracting. Enough to keep sleep out of reach. This isn't a willpower issue. It isn't overeating catching up with you. It's biology shifting as we age. THE hormones that govern hunger and fullness change over time. Ghrelin, the hormone responsible for that I need food signal, tends to become more sensitive with age. Leptin, the hormone that tells your brain I'm satisfied, stop eating, tends to become less effective. That's a documented shift, not something you're imagining. And when those two signals are out of balance at night, sleep becomes choppy. You wake up restless, unable to settle, and by morning you're not just tired, you're often hungrier than you should be. This is where a small protein and fat-rich food like peanut butter does double duty. The protein helps quiet that ghrelin signal, the feed me alarm that tends to go off more, easily after 50. And the fat slows down how quickly your stomach empties, which extends that feeling of comfortable fullness for longer. Not stuffed, not heavy, just settled enough that your body isn't sending distress signals in the middle of the night. And to be clear here, we're talking about a small, deliberate portion, not a midnight binge. We'll get into the exact amount that makes sense a little later, so stay with me for that. This next part matters even more if you do any kind of regular movement, whether that's a structured workout, a daily walk, gardening, or simply staying active around the house. Here's something most people don't fully appreciate. Muscle doesn't actually rebuild itself while you're exercising. It rebuilds while you're sleeping. Every walk you take, every set of stairs you climb, every grocery bag you carry, creates tiny, normal microstresses in your muscle fibers. That's a healthy and expected part of staying active. But the actual repair work happens overnight, during deep sleep, when your body releases growth hormone and gets to work, fixing what was stressed during the day. The complication is that after 50, this repair process becomes noticeably less efficient. Scientists refer to this as anabolic resistance, which essentially means your muscles don't respond to protein quite as readily as they once did. You need a bit more support, delivered a bit more strategically, to get the same rebuilding effect you used to get automatically. This is exactly where a nighttime protein source becomes genuinely useful. Research in sports and exercise science has shown that consuming protein before sleep can meaningfully support overnight muscle repair in older adults, essentially giving the body's nighttime construction crew more material to work with. 2 tablespoons of peanut butter provide somewhere around 7 to 8 grams of protein. That's not a massive dose, but at night, when your body is steadily drawing on amino acids for repair, even a modest, steady supply can make a real difference. Think of it as leaving the right tools out on the workbench before the overnight crew clocks in. If you've ever woken up stiff, achy, or strangely heavy in your joints first thing in the morning, this might be one of the more relevant pieces of information you've come across in a while. Your body wants to repair itself properly. It just needs the right support to actually do it. Now let's talk about morning specifically, because that's really where all of this either pays off or falls apart. That groggy, slow to start, almost disoriented feeling so many people over 50 have simply learned to accept as just part of getting older. Often, people blame poor sleep in general, or reach for an extra cup of coffee and push through it. But here's a more precise explanation for what's actually happening in a lot of cases. When blood sugar drops overnight, and the body releases stress hormones to compensate, those hormones don't always settle back down right away. By the time you wake up, your cortisol may still be running a bit higher than it should be, meaning your body is technically starting the day already in a mild stress state before you've even gotten out of bed. That low-level stress translates directly into brain fog, sluggish motivation, and that heavy, dragging sensation that can take hours to shake off. If you're close to a line, you have options. Delay Social Security a year and draw from other sources to stay under the threshold. Pull from a Roth IRA instead of a traditional one. Since Roth withdrawals don't count toward provisional income at all, use qualified charitable distributions to satisfy RMDs without adding to your taxable income. But none of these decisions work unless you calculate the number first. Let's walk through it. Say you're a single filer retiring at 66, expecting $18,000 in IRA withdrawals, $6,000 in pension income, $2,000 in savings interest, and $24,000 in Social Security. Add it up, $18,000 bucks, $6,000, plus $2,000 plus $12,000, half of Social Security, equals $38,000, above the $34,000 threshold, meaning up to 85% of your Social Security becomes taxable. That's $2,400 in taxable benefits, costing roughly $2,148 at a 12% rate. Now imagine delaying Social Security 1 year and bridging the gap with $24,000 from a Roth IRA instead. No Social Security income that year means nothing to tax, and the Roth withdrawal is invisible to the IRS, since it doesn't count toward adjusted gross income or trigger benefit taxation. Your tax bill drops by that same $2,148. And when you do start Social Security a year later, your monthly benefit is roughly 8% higher because you waited. You save money that year and you earn more every year after. That's the kind of decision you simply cannot make blind. You need the provisional income number first. 8. Run the itemize versus standard deduction comparison with the new SALT cap. For nearly 8 years, millions of homeowners stopped itemizing altogether. The 2017 tax law capped the state and local tax deduction at $10,000, which made the standard deduction the better choice for most people. And a lot of retirees have been taking it on autopilot ever since. That's changed. The SALT deduction cap has been raised to $40,400 for tax year 2026, with a small annual inflation adjustment running through 2029. If you own a home in a high tax state, this shifts the math significantly. For 2026, the standard deduction sits at $1,600 for single filers and $30,200 for married couples filing jointly. If you're 65 or older, add the additional standard deduction, roughly $2,050 for single filers or $1,650 per qualifying spouse, plus a senior bonus. Deduction of up to $6,000 per qualifying person if your income falls below $75,000 single or $150,000 married filing jointly. That's a substantial standard deduction to beat. But for some homeowners, itemizing now wins anyway. Picture a married couple in New Jersey. $16,000 in property taxes, $9,000 in state income tax, $4,000 in mortgage interest, and $5,000 in charitable giving. $34,000 in total itemized deductions. Under the old $10,000 SALT cap, only $23,000 of that would have counted, well below the standard deduction, so itemizing wouldn't have made sense. Under the new $40,400 cap, the full $25,000 in state and local taxes counts, bringing the itemized total to $34,000, beating the $32,200 standard deduction by $1 at $1,800. At a 22% bracket, that's roughly $396 in extra savings. Not life, changing on its own, but it compounds every single year, and for retirees with higher property taxes or bigger charitable contributions, the gap can be much larger. If you've been taking the standard deduction on autopilot since 2017, the year you retire is the year to run this comparison again. The rules have changed. Your filing habits should change with them. Your action timeline. Here's how to put all 8 pieces together if you're retiring in the next 12 months. Right away, pull up last year's tax return and find your total tax liability. That number is your safe harbor target. Divide it by 4 and set up quarterly estimated payments through the IRS's official payment portal. 3 to 6 months before retirement, max out your HSA if you have one. Once Medicare starts, that door closes for good. Also, take a look at your taxable brokerage accounts for unrealized capital gains and check whether you fall inside the 0% long-term capital gain zone before your income climbs. The year you retire. If your income drops significantly, run the Roth conversion numbers. Convert enough to fill your current bracket without tripping the Medicare surcharge 2 years down the road. This window doesn't stay open long. The month you start Social Security, file Form W4V to set up voluntary withholding at 7%, 10%, 12%, or 22% based on your projected tax bracket. Before your first full year of retirement ends, pull the beneficiary form for every account you own, verify the names, and update anything outdated. Before you claim Social Security, calculate your provisional income so you know exactly how much of your benefit will be taxed, and use that number to decide when to claim and which accounts to draw from first. Before you file your first retirement tax return, run the itemized versus standard comparison with the new SALT cap in mind. If you own a home in a high-tax state, you might save more by itemizing for the first time in 8 years. Every one of these 8 things is something the IRS expects you to figure out on your own. There's no checklist mailed to your house, no reminder about deadlines, no heads up about the 0% capital gains window or the penalty waiver for recent retirees. That's exactly why I make these videos, to put that information in front of you before retirement, not after the bill arrives. One more reminder before we close. Tax rules, Social Security thresholds, Medicare premiums, and retirement regulations can differ depending on where you live, and they're updated over time. Always verify the current rules for your specific state or country, and lean on a qualified tax, financial, or legal professional before making decisions based on the numbers in this video. Now flip that scenario. When blood sugar stays steadier overnight, supported by that slow, balanced release of protein and fat, stress hormones stay calmer too. The body's repair cycles can run their full course without interruption, and the brain wakes up in a genuinely more rested state. Not a miraculous transformation, but a noticeably clearer, more present start to the day. Some research into cognitive function in older adults has found that stable overnight blood sugar correlates strongly with how clear-headed people feel in the morning. In some cases, more strongly than total hours slept. In other words, it isn't only about how long you sleep. It's about what's actually happening, biologically, during those hours. And that small spoonful of peanut butter before bed may be quietly supporting that process the entire time you're unconscious and unaware of it. There's another piece of this puzzle worth digging into, because peanut butter isn't only protein and fat. It also contains a mineral that a surprising number of people over 50 are running low on without realizing it, and that mineral touches sleep, muscle function, heart rhythm, and stress response all at once. That mineral is magnesium. 2 tablespoons of natural peanut butter contains somewhere around 45 to 50 milligrams of magnesium, which is a meaningful contribution toward your daily needs. Magnesium has earned a reputation as the body's natural relaxation mineral, and for good reason. It helps activate the part of your nervous system responsible for calming things down, slowing your heart rate, and preparing your body for rest. It also plays a role in regulating a calming neurotransmitter that quiets brain activity, making it easier to both fall asleep and stay asleep through the night. Research reviews on magnesium and aging have repeatedly linked low magnesium levels with insomnia, nighttime muscle cramps, and reduced sleep efficiency in adults over 50. And a significant share of people in this age group don't get quite enough magnesium through diet alone. Pair that with the monounsaturated fats found in peanut butter, the same type found in olive oil, and avocado, and you get an added benefit since these fats are associated with lower overnight inflammation. Chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the more common, often overlooked reasons people wake up feeling stiff, sore, or mentally sluggish. So when you break it down, that small spoonful before bed isn't just a snack. It's magnesium working to calm your nervous system, healthy fat working to ease inflammation, and protein working to support your muscles, all happening quietly while you sleep. At this point, some of you are probably thinking the same thing a lot of people think the moment food and bedtime come up in the same sentence. Doesn't eating before bed cause weight gain? It's a fair question, and it deserves a real answer rather than a blanket yes or no. The truth is more nuanced than the popular belief suggests. What actually drives weight gain isn't the simple act of eating in the evening, it's your total daily calorie intake combined with the type of food you're choosing late at night. A bowl of sugary cereal or a stack of cookies before bed CAN absolutely disrupt insulin response and encourage fat storage overnight. But a small, protein and fat-based snack tells a very different story. Some nutrition research has found that a modest protein-rich nighttime snack in the range of roughly 150 calories didn't lead to fat gain in otherwise healthy adults, and in some cases was associated with a slight improvement in next morning metabolic rate. Here's the underlying mechanism worth understanding. If you go to bed with blood sugar steadily dropping and nothing to stabilize it, your body can interpret that as a mild signal of scarcity, and its natural response to scarcity is to slow metabolism and hold onto fat reserves just in case. Give your body a small, steady source of fuel instead, and it's far more likely to stay in a balanced state of repair and normal fat metabolism through the night. So for anyone over 50 who's mindful of their weight, a small, deliberate portion of peanut butter before bed isn't automatically working against you. Done thoughtfully, it might actually be working with your goals rather than against them. The operative word there is small, and we'll cover the exact amount that makes sense in just a moment. Let's turn to something that matters deeply to a lot of people watching this, and that's heart health. For some of you, this isn't an abstract topic. Maybe you've had a scare. Maybe someone close to you has gone through something serious. Maybe your doctor has mentioned your cholesterol numbers or blood pressure, and it's been sitting quietly in the back of your mind ever since. This part is for you specifically. Peanut butter is rich in monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, the same category of heart-supportive fats that researchers have pointed to for decades when discussing cardiovascular health. These fats are generally associated with healthier cholesterol profiles when used to replace less favorable saturated fats in the diet, and they play a supporting role in maintaining healthy blood vessel function over time. None of this means peanut butter is a cure or a guarantee. No single food works that way, and anyone who tells you otherwise is oversimplifying something far more complex. But within the context of an overall balanced diet, the fats in peanut butter fit comfortably into a heart-conscious eating pattern, especially when chosen over highly processed, sugar-laden alternatives that so often fill that late-night snacking gap instead. So let's bring this all together because by now you've heard a lot of separate pieces: blood sugar stability, melatonin support, hunger hormone balance, muscle repair, morning mental clarity, magnesium, heart-healthy fats, and it's worth stepping back to see how they connect. None of these benefits depend on some rare or expensive ingredient. They're tied to a small, ordinary spoonful of a food most people already have sitting in their kitchen cabinet. The key isn't the food itself in isolation, it's the timing, the portion, and the type you choose. If you're considering trying this, a few practical details make a real difference. Reach for natural peanut butter, the kind where the only ingredients are peanuts and maybe a pinch of salt, rather than the heavily processed varieties loaded with added sugar and hydrogenated oils. Those added sugars can undo a lot of the blood sugar stability we've spent this entire video talking about. Portion matters just as much as quality. We're talking about roughly 1 to 2 tablespoons, not a heaping spoonful straight from the jar. Timing it 30 to 60 minutes before you actually lie down tends to work better than eating it the instant you crawl under the covers, since it gives your digestive system a small head start. And if you want to round it out even further, pairing it with something like a few slices of apple or a small piece of whole grain toast can add a touch more fiber without overloading your system right before sleep. It's also worth being honest about who this might not be ideal for. If you have a peanut allergy, this is obviously not for you, and there are other nut or seed butters like almond butter or sunflower seed butter that can offer some similar benefits without the allergy risk. If you're managing diabetes closely, it's worth discussing portion and timing with your doctor, or